What is up, everybody? It is your boy Lou Martinez, aka Big Chief Burrito, here with another live edition of Fireside Chats with Big Chief Burrito on a Tuesday. There's a lot going on in the world. Obviously, we're several days away from a major election. The World Series is going on, but I appreciate anybody that's coming by, dropping by the stream to hang with us tonight. As always, in the new layout, two dogs sleeping at all times, because that's what they do. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about comic books, about the art of comic books, illustrations, the history of it, the present time of it, what the comic book industry looks like in a post-COVID, post-event world. With a local artist who's also been a featured artist at Comic-Con and always has a booth there. I met him there several years ago. We always had a lunch tradition that we'd go have lunch at least one time during Comic-Con week. Couldn't do that last year, obviously, or this year since it got canceled. But he said he'd come on. So if you guys have any comic book related questions, we are talking with Keithan Jones from Kid Comics. What's up, Keithan?
What's up, man? How you been?
I'm all right. I've been, until like yesterday when I created the stream, I completely had just erase the H in your name from my mind. For some reason, I was like, I wonder I was like, is it Keithan or Keithan? And then I created the stream yesterday and I put the title and I went to copy it because I always copy it directly from people's Facebook page or whatever so I don't mess it up. And I was like, Keithan, where the hell did that H come from?
I always have problems with people pronouncing my name, man. And when people ask me my name, it's the first thing that pops up in my mind. So I'll just Keith. Yeah, Keith.
Imagine if you're talking about, anymore. Imagine if you're talking about Keith and the person he's with. Keithan.
right.
In this case, Lou.
Or Ethan. Just think Ethan, throw that K in front of it.
Yeah. But you have you always are you I don't think you are, but are you local to San Diego? Like or
yep.
Where did you yeah, you grew up, born and raised here, huh?
I wasn't born there, I was raised here. I was born in Memphis, Tennessee, and came out here when I was around 5 or 6 years old and grew up out in San Diego. No, I didn't even know what burritos were, bro.
I found out when I got here and I never went back.
Yeah.
Let's jump right into it though. No Comic-Con this year. What was the thing that you missed the most, and what was the thing that you're like, you know what? I'm glad I didn't have to deal with that this year.
Comic-Con? Well, this year was actually going to be a very special year for me. I was invited to be a special guest for the very first time, so I was going to have this whole exclusive deal with them for this year, and I was super excited because they were going to give me a platform to get my name out there, my art out there, and take care of all the little trimmings for me. And then COVID hit, and that was a wrap. But they did extend the invite for next year. But to answer your question, what am I not missing? Jeez, man. I don't know, because for the size of that show, they run it pretty good. So many the years I've been there, like you would think there'd been a riot by now or some trampling. Right. Someone died in got walked over and got killed or something crazy like that. Nothing's ever really popped off in San Diego, so it run really well. Oh man, what do I miss?
Maybe hauling your shit.
Just carrying hauling my stuff around.
Yes, that Sunday evening shit. That Sunday evening grind.
Yeah. And I guess just wading through the crowds. You know, when you're trying to get somewhere quick and all of a sudden this traffic jam pops up in front of you and like, God. And it's off with someone in a wheelchair.
Yep, absolutely.
So I don't miss that.
But you know what I'm not gonna miss? Which was I miss being able to stop by the usual people that I know and like hanging out with people at their different booths that I see every year. What I'm not gonna miss is making that cross across the street the first day and then looking back and seeing the snipers on top of the hotels. that always trips me out when you see like
they have snipers up there.
Yeah. Like if you're walking towards the convention center, if you look back to your right, on top of there, there's always a couple of dudes over there with binoculars, and you see another guy down. I mean, it's usually, I think probably over the last several years, and it started when there was like a threat at some point, but there's just dudes there scanning the crowd with their little sniper rifles and
Yeah, what was that year? I think I know what you talk. There was a year. What was that year? Something happened that put America on alert.
yeah. I mean, there's always something that's happening. Or
Not, it was not. This was after 9/11. Something
yeah.
happened. I know what you're talking about. Some kind of.
There was, I think, was it maybe after like Boston, after like the Boston thing?
I think so. Yeah, that's what it was. Yep.
Because I think everybody was sort of like on high alert on stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's kind of where they're like, oh, there's going to be
We had
aerial.
a string of shootings, right?
Yeah.
We had a string of school shootings and some other crazy shootings going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Hero Team Camp Boston. Yeah, it was basically after the Boston bombing and stuff. That's when things kind of got a little hectic in that.
Mm-hmm.
So you move here when you're 4 or 5 years old. You live in San Diego. Did you always have, were you like the kid that just kind of like always was drawing on stuff when you weren't supposed to? Were you creating your characters like super early in your life?
More or less. I've told this story a million times. I originally wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, and didn't know how, but that was my passion. That was the stuff I was into. And then Star Wars came along and just kind of unlocked a piece of my mind, opened up my imagination. And since I couldn't make movies, comics were a practical thing to get my stories out. So that got me on my way. But at first I was just doing my version of Star Wars. I was doing little comic books of Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica and whatever else turned me on. But I didn't actually start doing my own characters until I came across Teen Titans back in the early 80s. And that's what sparked me doing original stuff, like the book, like my main book, The Power Knights.
So, I mean, is that like a case of like imitation is kind of like the first step? Because I think like, maybe sometimes comedians might start off like that, where they start reciting other comedians' jokes.
Right.
And then they sort of find their own voice, or when they start off as like another. Was it just because back in those, was it like the Challenger or was it pre-Challenger? Because I remember getting dragged into when they dragged that TV into that room like in '86, and I was sitting there like in grade school, and all of a sudden it was like, oops, everybody go home. Were you obsessed with NASA and space before then?
Before the Challenger?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm probably I probably got 10 years on you, bro.
Yeah,
how old are you?
I'm really I'm a 77 baby. So maybe not that many.
All right, so you got about 6 years on me.
Okay.
I mean, or I got 6 years on you actually. So yeah, I'm 71. So the NASA thing, my NASA phase. I mean, I'm still into NASA to this day. But as far as I actually wanted to be an astronaut, that ended back in maybe when I was 4 years old. And I got heavy. Like I said, I saw Star Wars. I'm going to say 76. I saw Star Wars. So I was about 5 years old. And that just kind of I just got stuck in this world of fantasy art and comic books and cartooning and just super dive. I was a weird kid. I think I was a weird kid because, there was no internet back then. So I'm the kid that went to the library, straight to the art section, studying Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, not reading it, just looking at the art and just trying to figure out how they did what. And then I came across the Star Wars art books, and actually tried to call myself shoplifting one, and it got caught the very first time I tried it because I was at this. I don't know if you remember the store Save-Ons. It's not around anymore.
Of course.
I didn't know they made Star Wars art books, and when I came across it, I was like, "Whoa!" Right? And I told my mom, "Can you get this? Can you get this?" And you know how it is back in the day. Your mom, like, no. I said no. Stop bothering me. And so she went out. she went out to go find some other stuff in the store, and I was like, I was so stupid. I put the book under my shirt so you can see the shape of the book in under my shirt. And I told my brother to wait for me by the door. And I actually saw the security guard who I thought was a customer at the end of the aisle. I thought it was just a guy that kept looking back, like that guy's weird, whatever. So I walked slowly, like in a movie. You know, you make movies, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like the camera's panning along and you're just walking toward the door. That was me. And then, excuse me, son. I turn around and the security guy's like, is there something wrong with your shirt? No. Are you sure? And then he just casually pulled the book out and took me and my brother into the security office and scared the hell out of us, had us crying and everything. You see all these people on the wall? I mean, there was a gang of people on the whole door was filled with photographs of people who tried to shoplift that he caught. You're going on that wall. And where's your mom? And blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, man. So, I mean, at least I was still in the book.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that, you know, but that was, that's how I only brought that up to tell you how passionate and serious I was about the art, you know. And so, yeah, man, yeah, no more astronaut, no more NASA for me. I was strictly with the comics and the art and the artwork around 5 or 6 years old.
My mom used to be cold with it when I wanted something. I'd say, Mom, I want this, but this was in Spanish. And she'd say, it's good to want things.
I'm on it.
And I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. So did that scare you straight, like turn you away from a life of crime then? Just being, you know, right there?
Yeah, because I was lucky my dad was overseas because he's in the Navy, or he was in the Navy. He's passed now, but back then he was still, you know, obviously they were younger back then, but he was always going overseas on what do you call it, Westpac or whatever. Mm. And he just happened to be on his tour. And so my mom was basically, wait till your father gets back. And so the whole summer was kind of like ruined because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, does he remember? Did she tell him? You know, because he did the spanking.
Have I banked enough goodwill between now and then? Have I done enough chores
right,
to avoid? Yeah.
Right.
Because I had seen you post. Okay. I think this is it right here. Let me share this. Hold on a second. Because I think you had shared some of the stuff that you did before, right? So this is it.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's my very first original comic, The Power Knights. Didn't even spell knights right. I forgot the K.
The Power Knits.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you did this? Let me see if it does it have
11 or 10 because my birthday's right in the middle of the year, so I could be either 11 or 10.
You even drew the thing right here in the bottom. You even have the scan code.
Dude, that was I'm serious. Like I was dead set on getting close as possible to what I consider a professional looking comic book, like Marvel. And I would just I got the magnifying. I'm not lying. I got the magnifying glass out to look very close at how the colors were printed on Marvel comics. And when you get close, you see a dot matrix. So I gotta have that dot matrix. So I would go find a hardcover book remember those hardcover books that would have some type of braille finish to it? Mm-hmm. I would find that and do my colors over that so I would get that dot matrix on my crayons. And I wasn't aware that a printing machine actually did that. So I just thought that's just the way, that's how it looks professional. So from that to like what you said, I had the barcode, a fake barcode. I had I had on the back of the comic, I had words of encouragement like reading's fundamental and stuff like that,
Man, and so how do you transition from that? I mean, and are those characters that are on that page all in your current books?
Yeah, for the most part. With some design modifications.
Well,
like I said, they were inspired from the new Teen Titans that George Perez and Marv Wolfman were doing at the time, which was my favorite comic. Still is my favorite series. If I had to choose one, it's my favorite series of all time as far as my collection years. But they were big time in the 80s. It was either the Titans or the X-Men and back in the heyday, as far as who were the top dogs.
And how did you? Go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead.
No, but how did you? So you start drawing that, you become obsessed with it. You go from NASA to Star Wars to being obsessed with Teen Titans. Do you start? Do your parents recognize this as something that you have an aptitude for, and do you start getting some training, or are you fully self taught from your youth?
Primarily self-taught. You know, um, like a lot of parents, they want the best for you, so they always giving you suggestions on maybe you should try this, maybe you should get into that, because they're thinking art.
How are you gonna make this money?
Dude, right? How you gonna make this? Like, that looks good, son. But
Yeah, that's great.
have you thought about the Navy? Or I heard that a lot. Thought about the Navy? I was like,
Mm.
you know. And I
They
was like,
need, they need people to paint ships.
but to their credit, they didn't get in my way.
Mm.
They allowed me to do what I need to do, but it was a form of punishment. Like most kids, they're grounded. With me, my punishment was to bring me all your art supplies. Like, I was that kid. So, but my grandmother, to this day, my grandmother who lives in Tennessee still, Memphis, she told me, and I wasn't really aware, but she said, because I used to live with her for my first 5 years, she said every time she took me to church, it was easy to take care of me because all she had to do was give me a pencil and a piece of paper, and I'd be quiet for the whole entire church session. I'll be on the floor doing my doodling.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't even aware I was, I don't remember doing that, but she said that's what I was doing in my early years.
Did it extend past the comic book page to like other types of genres of arts? Like, did you get into like art museums and other things to kind of look at different something mediums, or did you focus fully on comics?
No, I was into. I'm telling you, like Star Wars was a gateway drug. Like I got into everything that I thought, all forms of art. I didn't practice all of the arts, but I had an appreciation for it all, and I had an interest in I spent hours in the library just looking at stuff and reading biographies, artist biographies, and like I love auto design, for instance, architecture. What's the other art? Fine arts. Even though a lot of that stuff I didn't even understand. Like I didn't understand Picasso, right? I didn't understand what the big deal was when I first came across it. But the fact that he was this legendary artist was enough for me to read up on him, because I was attracted to perfection. Perfection is not the right word. I was attracted to people who were at the top of their game, who were legendary in their field. So I wanted to know what made those people tick, how they came across their skill sets and whatnot. So, and that included like one of my real people probably never connected, but one of my real biggest influence outside of this traditional art thing was Michael Jackson, and I learned a lot from him in the way of how to put entertainment together, how to put on a show, how to maximize whatever you're doing. Like he represented that to me. Like, man, like everything he did was top notch. Even if you didn't like his music, you have to appreciate, okay, this dude's quality. This video is quality. Like there was some effort put into this presentation. You could not deny that from him. So I fed into that stuff. And he was a huge influence on me.
There was a thing recently on the black and white video where that section where there was a different people of different cultures, and they were basically pointing out that he had these tribes there, and he didn't dress himself up to look like them. He let them be himself, and he was himself, and he let them do like their little cultural dances, and he didn't barge in or try to imitate the dances unless they invited him to.
Okay.
So they were basically saying all these different, like that little section where it's just these bunch of different tribes from all over the world and stuff. They're like,
he didn't make a mockery of it.
No, he was basically like, I'm not gonna come in dressed as traditionally as you want. I'm just gonna be Mike, and then they would start dancing, and they would be like, yeah, jump in, come do some stuff, and he would still just kind of do his own little dances because he didn't really want to like appear to be mocking them or taking advantage of the situation. So that's kind of
Yeah. What do they call it? Being a culture vulture.
culture vulture.
Yeah.
But I have a show with another Mike that could put on a show too. Mike,
Is that Mike Tyson?
that's Mike. When Mike say everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah. No, I remember those. That was Mike. Back in that time, Mike was that guy as well. Like I used to fear for. He's the only boxer where I legitimately feared for his opponents.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, because you knew they were going to go out between round 1 and 5. You're out of there.
That's the old question. Is Customato Mike? Could he beat Ali in his prime? Because when he was with Customato in his early days, he was a machine, man.
What do you think?
I always think that Ali's the GOAT, so I think he would have found a way to get it done. Because to say that Ali couldn't take the punishment that Mike gave him, he took punishment from Foreman, from Holmes.
And this was after his prime.
Yeah, that's after
his prime.
And it fucked him up. It took a toll on him, but he took it. So I think in his prime, Ali versus in his prime, Mike, I think Ali has a way to frustrate him. I'll tell you the secret to great athletes, and I don't think people realize this. I'll tell you the secret to Michael Jordan, Kobe, Ali. What's another one? LeBron, or even Tom Brady. It's not their athletic skill, it's this muscle. They're usually the smartest guy on the field. Because Jordan, every time those guys still stay at the top of their game or close to it at the last, near the end of their career, because after they can't run as fast, they can't jump as high. So what's left? Your knowledge of the game, right? Because you have players who can jump higher than some of those guys, higher than Jordan. You have players who are faster than Jordan or Kobe or whoever, but they could never put it together. You know what I mean? And to me, that's just intelligence. Like, you're just not smart enough. What was that one dude from the Heat that could jump out of the Harold Miner? I don't know if you remember him. I think he played for the Heat. Yeah, but there's been players that have been like twice as athletic as Mike that just never had the ability to put it together.
Right.
There's people that are better shooters, better dunkers, faster, stronger, but nobody can put it. You have to be able. And then if your skills drop off, then you have that mental edge.
Right. But then there's also natural blocks. Like imagine if Iverson was the same height as Kobe.
Yeah. AI beat Kobe and Shaq all by himself, man. He gangstered up that game against the Lakers a long time ago.
Right.
When you were talking about Picasso, I kind of had a thought, because there's certain artists, certain paintings, certain things that you really don't understand unless you see them real. Like Picasso, in theory, it's like, what's this guy that's doing this abstract? Oh, I can just do that. I can put the eye over here and the mouth over here. But if you're standing in front of like his three women paintings at the MoMA in New York, or if you're standing like in front of an actual Jackson Pollock painting that just looks like a bunch of drippings on paper, and you sort of relax your eyes, and that's where you sort of can sort of understand it more. I think that viewing things through your phone or viewing things to a computer screen often gives you an oversimplistic idea of what the artistic process is. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I see where you're coming with that. It's like it's one thing to see the Grand Canyon on the picture, but a whole other thing to actually be there and feel how small you are.
Yeah.
In comparison, yeah, for sure. And also a lot of art, like a lot of abstract art, is also open to interpretation depending on who you are. You may see something different from another. I know they have professional people who analyze these paintings, and over here he meant to. This is a piece of his childhood, and over here this is his, when he was, his breakup with his wife and blah 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 blah. But to someone else, none of that may register, but it still registers to them on some type of emotional level. And I think good art is not a technical thing. It's part of it. It's there, but I think for the most part, good art is when is something that registers with someone emotionally. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's definitely a part of it. Like, I think somebody that falls under that category would be Jean-Michel Basquiat, because
Right.
I think that, like, I used to have the joke that was like, when you start hearing rappers rap about Basquiat, it's
Mm-hmm.
they've reached a level of money where they where they're talking to like art collectors about what kind of work should I put in my house, and then they're like, well, there's a black artist Basquiat, we could get you some of his stuff, and
Right.
then he's like, shell out some 10 million. But somebody could look at a Basquiat and be like, that just looks like scribble. But
Right.
unless you kind of understand, like, and he's one of my favorite artists because I love the pop era of like the mid to late 80s.
The Radiant Child.
Yeah, Radiant Child. Uh, Basquiat the movie is one of my favorite films of all time. I can watch that movie over and over.
Yeah, it's great.
But like I say, like, and they wouldn't necessarily be wrong. That is somebody that's doing some very, very basic, very guttural sort of movements. But if you kind of feel sort of where it's coming from and the sort of anger and stuff that it has behind it, you can really understand it. I remember in the mid 80s, I got off a train going to go to the Barnum Bailey Circus, and I was with my dad, and I saw this guy with a piece of chalk scribbling on this black board in the subway station, and then I didn't even think twice about it. And then when I was in like later on in my life, I started learning about Keith Haring. I was like, I think I saw that guy when I was a kid,
That
and
dude's
all his,
dope.
like, and all this stuff. So I think I'm a huge fan of and because that's kind of the art that I do when I do art myself. Do you think that do you think because somebody might look at some of your early work and an art teacher might be like, okay, you're drawing, that's good. But have you ever gotten advice like, hey, you should try a different medium like acrylics or oils or watercolors or stuff like that? Did you ever study those? Did you ever get pushed towards that area?
That's part of my frustration. Like, unfortunately, outside of a couple of art teachers in my going to, I went to public school, like most people. Wasn't really surrounded by anybody who was knowledgeable in the arts or who knew how to give me any advice on how to get better or what to, like I said, it's almost like I had imaginary friends when I went to the library or read art books and just read the biographies or the art or read interviews. It's kind of like that was it for me. Like no one around me, they just didn't know, I just basically had to have a lot of faith in my own abilities and critique myself. Like, and I'm to this day, I'm still very critical of my own work. Like I can't even look at it after I finish it for like a year.
Really?
Because I don't really like anything. I see it in my head. It never comes out the way I imagine it in my mind. So it bothers me. But then maybe a year or two later, I'll look back at, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Are you more critical of the technical aspect? Are you more critical of the story?
Yeah, the technical stuff, like stuff that you wouldn't even notice, And I know people won't notice it, but I notice it. And so I think that the people who are like the pros out there, I think they'll notice what I see, and it's like, I'm not worried about my mom seeing something, and that's no disrespect to her, but she's not necessarily going to look at my work that way. So I'm thinking about, man, what if Jim Lee sees this? What if he sees that little line I make and it's going the wrong way or whatever? Silly stuff like that is, people are not aware. They're like,
We're talking with Keithan Jones from Kid-Comics. Is that the right one? Did I get it right there? Kid-Comics.com, creator, featured artist at Comic-Con. We're talking about his history as an artist. Thank you, everybody that's stopping by. If you have a Comic-Con question, a comic book question for Keithan, leave it in the comment section. Make sure you leave a like on the stream. Thank you guys for watching. Just FYI, everybody watching, if you're following, when we go live, facebook.com/2mburrito. If you want to watch on Twitch, twitch.tv/2mburrito. It's all burrito related. YouTube.com/2mburrito. And the audio version of all my streams goes live about a week after I do the live stream, and that's on bigchiefburrito.podbean.com for all you audio files. What was the first character that, I mean, you started off really early, obviously, kind of doing an homage to different characters that you've seen. When did you feel that you created your first fully original, fully developed character from your mind?
Yeah, it would have to be the Power Knights.
Yeah, so
that team.
What went into the structure?
We're in the same generation. We're Generation X, right?
Yeah.
And especially like coming from we're from the hip hop era, right?
Absolutely.
So you know what the term biting means.
Yeah.
Right? We come from that generation. Like it wasn't cool to look like someone else. It wasn't cool to act like someone else or dress like. I mean, you know what I mean? We had similarities, but everybody was trying to be like the original mold back then. That was the thing. Like, even like tagging. I don't tag. I don't know how to do graffiti. I couldn't. That my mind doesn't work that way. But that was a thing. Like you get your ass beat if you tag like someone else. You know what I mean? So I come from that era. Like it was imperative to one up each other. Like my one of my best friends is this Filipino cat named Bobby Rubio, who currently works at Pixar, right? And we came up together since junior high. And man, every day I would bring a drawing to school. He'd bring a drawing to school. We would do similar stuff like science fiction and superheroes, but it was all about, oh man, my motivation was like, wait till he sees this, trying to like one up each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, so there was no room for like, we couldn't copy because the two of us studied the same stuff. So we know right off the bat, like, oh man, you got that from page 7 of issue, whatever. You know what I mean?
So there was no room for biting, right?
No, that was a no.
But there's a thin line. I mean, because like the same thing they say about me, this is me putting myself in fucking Quentin Tarantino's class, but I'm not. Is that what they say about him as a filmmaker is that he watched too many movies, and so that the styles and stuff that he's doing is a combination or an amalgamation of different films and different scenes that he's seen in the films. And I kind of find it hard because I've watched pretty much every movie. When I'm describing a scene that I write or that I'm putting together, it's like this and this. And that's just the way my mind works, not necessarily that I came up with it because I saw those other movies, but I have this thought and my mind immediately goes to sort of parallels that I've seen in my life. So
now, are you talking about film techniques, like how things are edited, or are you talking about? Because when I look at Tarantino, I think he's paying a homage to a certain genre,
right?
And it's something he's doing on purpose, not something he's biting. I don't know if you see it that way, but
I mean, he's lifted entire sort of motifs and sort of situations from other obscure like Japanese films and stuff like that, where you can see like, oh, if you know a lot about cinema, you're going to be like, that's very similar to that, but. There's just a very thin line between just being inspired by something, trying to do an homage to it, versus, like you said, straight up biting or just being derivative of a concept that was originally made. There's also such a thing as groupthink, which is, different people having a very similar idea because our brains are similarly constructed, so we can have these same imaginations where you and I can come up with the same sort of situation, but when you're drawing and when you're creating stories, do you ever catch yourself saying, wait a minute, that's a little bit too much like this, or that's very reminiscent of that? How much do you have to edit yourself in that process?
It's so hard to do now because everything, like you said, everything under the sun been done. And it's tough, bro. But the thing I figured out is if I add my personal life to the story, something I know from a personal experience, then that's what's going to separate it from the others. Because you can't, there's just like, there's nothing else to like. How many superheroes fly? How many superheroes have laser
Right.
beams coming out of their eyes? Or how many?
Come from another planet.
Yeah, or on the film side, you had you know, Spielberg, Lucas, Tarantino, or not Tarantino, but
Scorsese.
Scorsese, Brian De Palma, and all those guys making a name for themselves in the '80s, and then they spawned the next
Yeah.
generation. The guy, who's the guy that did Seven?
Fincher.
Yeah, David Fincher. Like you look at, I was looking at that film like a month ago, and I was like, man, this really does look like this is signature '90s filmmaking. The way that the way the credits were
Yeah.
done and the
I think
photography of it.
I think I wrote that in your comment, which is like every single one of those notebooks, he had a production assistant right from margin to margin.
Yeah,
Like those were
but
all handwritten.
but since I know Hitchcock, I recognize Hitchcock all through that. Like Hitchcock did the same. A lot of what he did in that film. That he's like he did a modern version of what Hitchcock style, in my opinion.
Mhm.
The way it was framed, the way those credits were done, all of that was
The
Hitchcock.
main thing about Seven, I think, is also that the camera is in constant movement when the characters move. So when Brad Pitt is like getting up and walking, like the camera is always like kind of trying to, it's
Yeah,
he's very like an architect when he's making those movies. And
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
beast.
I think artists when you're learning your craft, a lot of it on a lot of it subconsciously you don't even know how much you're copying until you look back at it.
Yeah,
Oh, because you're in the moment and you're super inspired by whoever you're inspired by, and that stuff seeps in there because you're trying to not only are you trying to tell your story, but you're also trying to learn how to do it. So if you don't know how to do it, you're just going to do what you see, and once you figure it out, then you start to spawn off into doing it your way. But yeah, but that's okay because you're gonna either learn through doing or you're gonna learn through a teacher, but you're gonna go through some form of classroom or education and whatever you do really.
for me, I think as a filmmaker, it comes down to like the language of cinema, which is like you said, Hitchcock and all these other masters, Spielberg and whatnot. They showed us this way of making films, the same way you could be like, there's nobody else that can draw in a cubist style because you're copying Picasso. No, Picasso created a cubism sort of abstract way of art. So you can definitely draw in that same style or make art in that same style and not be a Picasso clone. The same way you can make, you can do long intersecting cuts and not be a Scorsese clone, or
Right.
or you can set up things for a masterfully like in a suspenseful drama like Hitchcock and not be a clone. So
Right.
like I've always battled with that because since I've seen so many movies, every time I'm making a movie or I'm in a scene, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to put this in a corner because that's how they, that's just a shout out to this movie. Or I'm going to start this scene in this framing because it's a shout out to this movie. And then it becomes my own thing, but I put them in there just because
You
it's
got
kind of,
because you got to do it. Like
yeah.
I got to do it at least once. I got to get it in there.
It's
I
like
got a
when you,
question.
go
I got
ahead.
a question for you though.
Mhm.
Do you ever do you find yourself wanting to like really do something crazy, but you're worried about how the audience is going to perceive it, and it might be so wild? It's not wild to you. It's like, oh, this is awesome. This is different, but I know they're not going to understand it, so I'm not going to do it.
I think the only area where I find myself backing up now is when it's theme or language, because I feel like, unfortunately, as an artist, you have to sort of be aware of the moment that you're in. So even though I don't want to be sort of muted by what I think people's perception is going to be of a line, or if a joke goes too far,
Mm,
I still find myself editing myself. Like we had a joke in a pilot sitcom that was sort of a heavy, like a dark joke, but
mm,
it wasn't anything stronger than what you would see in a show like Veep, or like some of these shows where it's like full on boom, just as nasty as you want to be. But
mm.
in my mind, I thought the people that are first going to see this are going to react strongly to this and they're going to sort of be turned off by the rest of the project. So I ended up taking it out. As far as like actions or styles or things that I want to try, I try to not limit myself. You know, I try to do it as best as I can within the constraints of what I have. So if I have good people that are like my DP, if I have a camera person that's just a beast, you know, I'll throw out my ideas, but I'll more than likely go with what their suggestion is, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, there's times where I want to really separate myself from the pack and do some wild stuff, but
style wise or content wise,
style wise, but I have to, since I'm in a situation where it's like this is also my main source of income. I have to think in practical terms, like, this, I get it, but chances are the general public probably going to think it looks crazy, like they're not going to be receptive to it. And you're trying to, I'm not in a position where I got enough money or wealth where I can just do whatever the hell I want to do and not worry about
fuck you money yet.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck you money. And that can be, obviously technically I can do it.
Yeah.
There's no one stop me from doing whatever I want to do. But like anything, there's always a yin and yang, right? And since I'm also a father and I have a kid and all this other stuff, responsibilities, I have to still have that practical side of my thinking in play when I put my stuff out there, that's, I try to find a balance.
No, yeah, that makes sense. How long did it take you to be able to live and work and support yourself full time as an artist? And did you have a traditional job until then?
Oh yeah, I've worked any type of job you can think of. I probably did it. Except work at a grocery store, I'll never do it. They'll have to kill me.
What, bagging groceries or stocking shelves?
Yeah, I just can't see. Yeah, that's the one job that's kryptonite to me. Like, I just can't do it, man. I'd never even applied to work at a grocery store. I can't do it. Can't do it. And I've digged holes before. I've been in the sun digging holes to put in street lights and shit. But the grocery store looks like it would be torture to me. Like, man, that looks like a slow day to me. But and dealing with customers all day and I have a low tolerance for bullshit when people have you ever worked a job where you had to wear a uniform? You ever worked any job where when you put a uniform on, like I worked at Kinko's before, when you put a uniform on, it's almost like some people think it's a green light to talk crazy to you.
Yeah.
And I'm not the one when it comes to that. Like, no. I'll just get fired before you talk to me crazy.
What were some of the other jobs you had, though?
Huh?
What are some of the jobs you had, though?
Oh, that are not art related?
Mm-hmm.
Shit, man. I've worked a lot of warehouse. I worked warehouse, like graveyard shift, doing stuff like Home Depot, where all through the night stocking bricks and cement and driving forklifts. I worked for the LA City of Transportation right after the '94 earthquake, because a lot of people lost their job because their place of employment was destroyed by the earthquake. So the city was giving out jobs if you needed it. And I ended up working for LA Transportation, and I learned how to put what they call loops in the street. You ever stop at a stoplight and see those cuts in the street?
Uh-huh.
Those are sensors to let the street know, or the lights know, that there's a car there, so it knows to start to change the light to green for you, so you're not waiting forever. And I learned how to actually put those loops into the seat, cut the cement, put the loops in, and set the timing on the control box. And I forgot how to do all of that because that was back in the '90s, so I don't know how to do any of that anymore. What else? Shit. When I was at for the summertime, I got hired to paint the entire rooftop of my college in the middle of the summer with white paint. So I don't know if you know, but if you're on a roof of a building and you're painting the building white and it's blazing hot, that sunlight's bouncing off the white onto you. So I'm up there burning up, dude, trying to, by myself, mind you, because no one else would take the job. painting the entire roof of Cal Arts up in Valencia by myself. Stuff like that, man. I can't even remember, man. I think I might have worked at Kmart before. Uh, and I
It's
worked
close to a
fast.
grocery
My
store.
very first job was Popeye's Chicken. My
Okay.
very first job was Popeye's Chicken. I was a cook. I quit after a month because I kept burning myself in the deep fryer. And I was afraid that one day I might slip and fall into it. So I was like, I'm out.
What was the last job you had before you began to support yourself as an artist full time? Like, what was the last time you quit a job and was like, you know what, I'm cool. I'm
all
doing
of
my
that,
art.
all of that stuff, all of those odd jobs were primarily in the '90s, and but mixed in, I was always doing some kind of contractual work, whether it was for someone's film project, doing storyboards, doing a logo for someone. Um, but I got my very first professional graphic design job through you know who Tony Gwynn is,
Yeah.
who used to play for the Padres.
Yeah.
Okay, his wife hired me to work at their merchandising company called Gwynn Sports here in San Diego, and I didn't know anything about computers practically. Didn't know Photoshop, didn't know Illustrator, and she hired me based on my drawings, my portfolio, and her brothers trained me how to use those programs. Excuse me, on the job. And the crazy part was, before I got hired, I was out of work. I was living in a storage room at this dress store that my mom was running. Nobody knew I was in the back there. I slept on the floor basically in a closet, and basically down on my luck, not knowing where my career is going to go. And someone who worked for Gwyn Sport, an older gentleman, an artist, happened to strike up a conversation with my mother. She told him about me being an artist. Oh, he said, "Oh, let me see your stuff." And she told me to come out the back, show him my stuff, whatever. Next thing I know, the very next day, dude, I'm at the mansion. I'm at the mansion, in Tony Gwynn's house, talking to his wife, and she hires me on the spot. And I go to work. I think the next day I'm sitting in the office, and I got a full-time job as a graphic designer with little to no experience doing that stuff, making designs for T-shirts. And that's where it all. And from that point moving forward, I was able to springboard into other professional gigs in the graphic design field. Not comic book work, mind you. Comic book stuff was just popping up here and there. I would do little indie art jobs or something, like I said, work on someone's film project or something like that. But as far as a day job, I was able to string along a series of graphic design gigs when I could get them. You know, because I never stayed too long at a job through the late '90s up all the way up to the early 2000s, and then I hit Kinko's right before 9/11. I was working at Kinko's, and Kinko's was good for me because that's where I started to build up my own personal clientele. Because Kinko's was offering everything but, for some reason, Siri wants to get in on this. Kinko's was offering all this stuff as far as printing and doing your presentations for your corporate presentations, all this other stuff. But they didn't offer original graphic design, right? And word got around that I did that work, right? And so on the low, I was doing graphic design work for customers that would come in there looking for that stuff and they couldn't get it from Kinko's. But since I was working there, they pawned them off to me, and I started to develop a clientele that wouldn't go away. You know, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I went on, you know, so I had a series of other jobs that were similar to Kinko's and graphic design, started going to Comic Cons because I got hired to do a 2-issue comic for a guy called Billy Martinez, who used to live here. He lives in Tennessee now, but Billy Martinez was an independent comic book publisher who's doing what I'm doing now, but he was doing it way back then, right? And for whatever reason, he gave me a chance to draw a couple of his issues. And through that experience, I was able to start experiencing going to San Diego Comic Con on the other side of the table. So I started to see what it was like to be a professional comic book artist, interact with fans, go to different venues, how to start talking to people, all because of him. And some other stuff happened because I don't want to take up all the time, but some other stuff happened.
No.
But the last job I had before I got completely independent was I worked at a advertising firm called Success Advertising or Success. I'm forgetting my own company, but it's called Success Advertising originally. And we basically did. We were experts at marketing, and we would come up with ad campaigns for different clientele, primarily healthcare companies, where we had to figure out ad campaigns to entice doctors and nurses and whatnot to actually move to a place like Texas or Nevada or Phoenix to set up shop at one of these hospitals and live there. So we had to come up with ways to make desert cities look fun and exciting and have stuff
Inviting.
going on. Yeah. And it was my job to take all the verbiage and the company logo and make it look pretty, basically, make an ad out of it. And
So
that was my job.
So you do all these like odd jobs here and there. You get the Tony Gwynn chance, and then and then from there you just kind of keep building the resume, keep building connections, and keep going from there. I think I remember you telling me the Tony Gwynn thing a while ago, like in person, I think, but I don't know if I ever told you when I don't you remember this, but there was that scandal the Padres had like in the 90s where they were in New York to play the Mets, and some of the Padres got caught soliciting prostitutes. I don't know if you remember. There was like a scandal.
That one went over. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, that was like 93, 94 time, right? So 2 days. So the day after that happens, we have tickets down the third base line, down the first base line to watch the Mets and the Padres.
Okay.
And so we're sitting down the first base line by right field. The entire game, we are talking shit to Tony Gwynn. Nonstop. Nonstop. Tony, the hookers are waiting in the limo. They got the 8-ball. They want you and the homies. Tony, you guys are baseball players. Don't tell me you guys can't get laid without going for hookers, blah, blah. Yeah. 8 innings, we are just bashing Tony Gwynn the entire time, right? Just four of us, a couple of Mets fans down the right field line. Tie ball game. Tie ball game goes into extra innings. Top of the 10th inning, it's like 1-1. Tony Gwynn comes up to bat. It was like first or second pitch, crack. Right field line, home run. Tony Gwynn's not even a home run hitter. He hits a home run. He's, goes around the bases. He comes out for the bottom of the 10th. Takes a wide right turn, goes right by us when he's going to right field. Just walking out to right field. We give him the old fucking Wayne's World. We're not worthy, Tony. Tony, we're not worthy.
Set you guys up.
He said it. The 8 innings we were giving him shit. Top of the 10th, just cracked one. Wow. That's my Tony Gwynn story.
I'm not a huge baseball fan, but wasn't he good for? He was good for one every game, wasn't he?
Home run.
He would put one out, take one out, hit one out the park at least.
I mean, I don't know if Tony Gwynn ever hit more than like 20, 25 home runs in a season. Man, he almost hit 400 every year. I know it was around the time that he was hitting like 390. I mean, that's why they named that beer after him, right? The 394 Ale. That's the Tony Gwynn. That's the Tony Gwynn beer. I mean, he was a hitter, but he wasn't like a power hitter. But I mean,
he wasn't power hitter, but he'd get on base.
He would get a hit and he could put it up there once in a while. But I just remember being at that game, talking shit to him nonstop, and then him just shutting our asses down in the 10th. A true. Better. Let's catch up with some comments here from people. Hero Team Ken, who I gave your book to yesterday. Just slide it. Just bring it on. Come on, make an appearance. Hero Team Ken, show up. He says, "Is it an outlet for you? Your art? When you create new characters, are you sort of going over stuff in your head and using it as an outlet?"
Well, first of all, thanks for supporting the book. Um, and
I got the poster back there. If you can see it too.
that's what's up. Now I forgot the question. Is it
Is it an outlet for you?
to make comics or
to creating new characters? I think this is from a little while ago, so I think it's when we were talking about like creating new characters, stuff like that, just your art in general.
I think he means is this stuff an escape for me?
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, yes. I think, and I was talking about this at another show that we were talking about African black people in comics and whatnot, and how I think they were asking me if I put my personal life in the books, and I was like, not me. So I don't really like to get into the politics of my of the black experience within my storyline, as far as making that the story of my comic. I see a lot of guys out there doing that, but for me, comics always represented a way to get away from that shit. You know what I mean? Like my real life was a movie. Like I haven't even told you half the shit I went through in LA. Like the stuff I've been through, I can make a movie out of, but I don't want to also bring that stress into my creative space, if that makes any sense. Like I know a lot of artists feed off, they put a lot of their pain into their art. The way I'm wired, I'm more of a optimist.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to I like to be the guy where you worked all day, you worked your 8 hours, you hate your boss, you hate your job, and you got to come home and watch a game and eat some popcorn, right? I want to be that. I want to be the game. Like I want you to read my comics as a way to escape. I mean, I think that's why Star Wars has been around so long. People are like, well, Star Wars is not deep like Star Trek, and Star Wars, it's not, it's not Game of Thrones. I'm like, who cares? It's fun.
Yeah.
That's the way. That's why it's still around, because it's fun.
Yeah.
It can be deep if you make it deep in your mind. There's layers to it if you really want to look at it. But on the surface level, Star Wars is just an escape mechanism to get you out of your daily grind, put some pep in your step, and so you can go to bed at night. And I want to do the same thing with my art. Just be an escape artist. But I have lent my talents to heavier material because I'm interested in that too. It's just not what I do when I personally put my thoughts down and do my thing. That stuff is just so serious to me that I approach it. I'm serious when it comes to like social justice and all that stuff. To me, that's real to me, and that's serious to me. So I recently did the Black Lives Matter protest. I ended up doing that, and I ended up doing a speech. Didn't plan to, but somehow I ended up being asked to make a speech over there in PV about my thoughts on the whole Black Lives Matter thing. But that's not. I don't think that's something to play with. I don't like really making light of that stuff. So it's a separate thing to me.
Yeah, you don't want them to you don't want them to bleed into each other.
Yeah, even though I know there's stuff out there. There's stuff out there that I will consume that's about I'll watch the hell out of a documentary. I love documentaries. See, Daisy, is he having a bad dream?
Yeah, I was like, "Stay, what are you dreaming about?"
Yeah, man, it's. I think other people do it better than me too when it comes to they really get into studying the history of our plight, and they can really articulate it well with their words. And I know I could too if I really sat down and studied it, but it's not something that comes natural to me.
Right.
So I'd rather not fake the funk and try to I'm going to get deep with this. And, this is a story about a slave that inherits superpowers, and he, get out of here.
Right.
That's not.
Well, like a Superwoman, Harriet Tubman sort of hybrid. Is that what they want you to create?
Yeah. There's stuff out there like that, but they're good at doing it. It's not, to me, I feel like if I did it,
it's not your lane.
It'd be contrived a little bit, Like when I talk, yeah, to me it's more like I said, it's a serious thing to me because too many people out there don't take it serious already, and it's like that's a problem to me. Like, yo, man, that's not funny. That's not a joke. That's a serious thing that I've been dealing with my entire life. But
Yeah,
this comic book thing is keeping me from like beating your ass. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. No, I think I can relate to it in a sense that, if you look at me as like, a Latino or Latinx film director or whatever, I always say that our movies, no matter the genre that they're in, that me and our co-founder Brian stuff is, it could be different genres, but it usually has some comedy into it. And
Mm-hmm.
and like myself, my own personal films, they're comedic or they have takes. And there's all these other Latinx important filmmakers that are making all these dramas about like immigrant stories and very deep stuff that's very important to the culture, la raza, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of feel like that sometimes it works against me in terms of not getting as much maybe festival love or stuff like that, because I feel like that's what they expect from a Latino filmmaker, for them to make movies about immigration stories and stuff like that, or
They
gangster stuff.
do expect it, bro. They
Yeah,
do expect that. They expect it off the jump when they see you. Oh, you're
yeah.
a filmmaker. This is gonna, you know, you refer yourself as Latino?
I don't. I mean, I'm Colombian and Uruguayan, but I identify as Latino, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, because sometimes I get confused about
But I've been in
because
San
I
Diego long enough that I might as well be Mexican. That's the other part, that I've been here since
okay,
like for the last 20 years. I've been San Diego native, so to anybody that sees me up top, they might immediately assume that I'm a Mexican filmmaker too.
yeah, and I don't want to offend you or
No, you can't do that.
anyone like that. But yeah, that is a crutch or crutch the right word? That is that's an invisible barrier that people aren't aware of because people do it. We all do it. We all subconsciously do these. We stereotype people, right? And we expect people to like certain things, or we think they're going to be into certain things because of their heritage. And with artists, I think there's so many artists out there that are frustrated because they're not judged on their art; they're judged on the color of their skin or the way they look before the person gets to the art. You know, because when I did and this is from my own people, bro. I've heard stuff like black people make comics. You know, this is not from white people or anybody else. This is from black people. You know, being like completely shocked that we're into things other than basketball and hip
Right?
hop.
Is it a basketball comic?
Right? Right? You know? And that's just but I'm also not the dude that's walking around mad. I'm not
Yeah.
walking around mad and I don't got I give people a lot of leeway and I like to allow people to I like to show who I am and what I'm about through my art. So like when I was saying I don't put a lot of social commentary within the art itself. At the same time, I believe the biggest statement a person of color can make doing something that's that's breaking the mold, so to speak, is being who they are. The moment they see that you're Latino, bro, and you made that film, you did your part for your culture, right? That's stronger than anything you could put to film. Like when they see you associated with this piece of art, and you are successful with it, that's super inspiring. That's all it really is, dude. Like you can make a film about fucking melted ice cream for 2 hours. When
Yeah.
they see that, they'll be like, that's stupid. But when they say, oh, Latino dude did it, oh shit, he's my
Must
favorite. You know,
it must be important.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's gonna inspires the next little Latino dude or girl to like get on it. Like, yo, this if he did it, I can do it. You know, it's and that's the part that I think I want people to know out there. Like, you don't got to get super deep, bro. You don't got to like be freaking Spike. You don't have to be Spike Lee. You can do your little robot story the fact that you're black, Latino, Chinese, Japanese, whatever, female, whatever, when they associate you with that art, that's all that really matters only because, and this the reality of this particular country, of really a lot of countries, that if you're in a culture where there's a hierarchy of what people are expected out of you, and you break that mold, just the fact that you did it is inspiring enough. It's not so much like, oh, you're Scorsese with it.
Yeah. I think it's just that thing where like people they might expect the similar things from me that they expect from you, and as much as they're like, oh well, you should, you really should be making these important, serious films, or you should really be tackling these important topics that are important to like Black culture or Latino culture. When really, I just want to make something that's going to make you think and laugh and go through a journey with me as I tell you a story. That's kind of like.
Yeah, I've seen I forgot the name of some dating film you did.
Slapworthy.
Yeah, that shit was funny.
All right, I want to catch up. Destiny 666, which is actually our writer Brian, says, "Stop clicking that pen, man. It's annoying." All right, I got you. He actually had it. All right, this question is better creator, Jack Kirby or Malcolm Nicholson? That's a question from.
I gotta pull up Malcolm Nicholson. I've probably seen his work, but don't know that. I don't know.
How do you feel about Jack Kirby though?
Jack Kirby's the god, man. But when I first saw him, I hated. I thought it was trash. Like when I was a kid, I was like, because Jack Kirby was already super old school by the time I even knew what comics were. But I kept seeing his name all over the place. Like, who the hell is Jack Kirby and Stan Lee? They were old school by the time I was a kid. Their heyday had already passed, and so I was leaning more toward people like Neil Adams and George Perez and Frank Miller. Those are my guys, right? That generation was my generation. But Jack Kirby was like looking at Picasso, like, what?
Right.
This guy draws funny. And then as I got older, then his genius started to hit me. When I got a little more educated on the art form of comic books. So whoever that other guy is, I'm pretty sure I'm going to put Jack Kirby above him.
Okay, yeah. If you don't got the name recognition on him,
right?
How did you like you mentioned like the sort of the perceive or like the comics books that are sort of dealing with a cause or a movement, but in general in your career, how have you seen like the rise in Black comic characters and heroes, change? Because I felt like, and I was kind of like just doing, because I was like, usually I was looking like, well, let me look at a list of like the top most popular like Black comic book characters, and a lot of them were female.
Did the name Black in them?
A lot of them were and they either had very Black sounding names, Black Phoenix, Black Panther.
He all got Black in it, man. You know how they do?
Yeah.
They make that. It's like, he's Black.
Black Superman.
That part out. I figured that part out, bro. What's your question, though?
No, I mean, just what are your thoughts on kind of like have you seen it change? Do you think it's just kind of more of the same, the characters that are popular? Obviously, yourself, there's other sort of indie books now. You have a whole Black Comics Day dedicated to it.
Yeah, okay. As far as the mainstream, it's the same characters that have been there since the 60s. Black Panther, Luke Cage, Black Lightning. They're still the prominent ones that most
Dr.
people
Manhattan.
know about. Well,
he's blue.
He is now, right?
Yeah.
But
they retconned him Black, right?
Yeah. But I'm talking about as far as like the ones, the popular ones, the ones that are always there are still there because the industry really hasn't changed. The white guys haven't changed either. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman. And I think that's why the industry's suffering right now. The films are doing great, but the comics themselves they're not doing what they used to do as far as the sales, right? As far as American comics, and manga's doing great, but American comics are basically still the same, running the same 5 characters over and over. And DC's like, if Batman ain't a part of the book, it ain't coming out. You know what I mean? Batman's featured in everything they got going on over there. Some of it's good, some of it's good and great, but it's like, yo, you guys got other characters, you know that, right? But it is what it is, and it's those two companies are publicly traded, I believe, and I know they have to worry about the bottom line. And Batman sells, and Spider-Man and X-Men, well, they don't sell like they used to,
Right.
but they gotta feed the beast, you know, and the comic shops depend on it. But I would say over the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, there's been this groundswell of indie comics. And thank God for Kickstarter because that's a big part of it. Uh, Especially you were asking me about black characters. There's been this huge wave of black independent comic book creators that have been rising over the last 10 years strong, right? And you see the proliferation of black comic book shows that are popping up across the nation. And I run one of them here in San Diego every February, and it's been super successful. So it only proves that audience is there, that audience is hungry, and it's up to us to give them content.
This was the
Most
event
of
from
us,
last year, right?
that's right. And yeah, that's the third one. Probably won't be one come. I don't think I'm doing one next year because of COVID. So, and that's okay. That's okay. I got plenty of other stuff to do. But what was I saying? We're out here. We've always been out here, but we never really had the spotlight on us. So it's kind of like how hip hop was right before Yo MTV Raps came around and started putting them out, putting those people who were always there into the mainstream. You know, because corporate, and I'm generalizing. Obviously, there's people. I don't want to shit on people, but in a general sense, corporate America is always the last to know. They're like, you know, because they don't like taking chances, especially now. Less and less companies take chances on artists across the board, whether you're a comic book artist or a musician or whatever. They want you to do all of the work now. And if you pop if you go viral, or if you just pop in general, then they want to come talk to you. That's the way I see it going right now. Like you gotta make enough noise where they hear you.
Yeah,
And then
it's usually what an executive's like 14-year-old daughter that finds you, and then they talk to their daddy, and then corporate is aware of it. Like, oh hey, you hear about this?
Right. I mean, I think did you see the Todd McFarlane documentary?
The which one?
Todd McFarlane. You know who Todd McFarlane is?
Yeah.
He created Spawn.
Spawn.
He had a documentary come out over the summer for the during the virtual San Diego Comic Con, I think it was. But anyway, he's talking about that's how he got his toy deal, like from how he got into Toys R Us and all the stuff with his McFarlane toys. The young executive, just like you said, was a comic book fan and a fan of his work, and he told the boss who goes to these conventions to pick out the toys he wants to put money into. He told his boss, "Yeah, you should check out Todd McFarlane. He's a big deal." Because the boss guy was like, I don't know, he didn't know who Todd McFarlane was, and I'm sure he didn't collect comics either. But the younger executive or his secondhand man there, he's the one that put Todd on to turn his ear to Todd because he was a comic book fan. And the same thing is going on with film right now, right? Back when we were kids and teenagers, the type of movies that are out now were not nowhere to be found and the ones that were out there, they were so hokey, bad effects. They were horrible, right? But why are they doing it now? Well, our generation is getting into positions of power to make those films now. That's why you're seeing this stuff, and why you're seeing it done right, because those filmmakers were fans of this stuff, just like you and I. They are now been given the green light to go and do it the way it should be done.
It's the same reason that we hear more hip hop in like breakaways from sporting events and TV commercials now, because we've joined that demographic. I was watching, was it like March Madness or something, and it was like they were playing like going into a commercial, they were playing like some Gangstar or some MCMI or something like that. Right. And I'm like, oh, okay. First thing you're like, oh, this is dope. And then you're like, yeah, oh, they're playing it for me. because I'm old now.
Yeah. And that's what I mean, and it is what it is, right? I mean, we weren't feeling what our parents were listening to when they were playing all that, whatever the hell that shit was, and but they were feeling it, but we were like, what the hell is this? You know, get it out of here. So, but now our generation's in there, so we're gonna put stuff that we think is hot and we think is relevant, and the cycle continues. But the smart thing is that someone in that particular company was smart enough to do that. They understand that we can't keep feeding a dying audience. That's you have to what do they say? Adapt or die.
Right.
And that's what it is. If you want to be smart about it, don't be a hater. Embrace what's out. Embrace what's going on in the world, and stop resisting change. And I think your career will go a lot smoother.
Where were you? Where were you? Like, because it's another question that Team Ken had asked. Which, how big of a Stan Lee fan were you, and how did you take his passing?
Oh, that's weird. I was a fan of Stan Lee, but I wasn't
like a fanboy.
I wasn't a fanboy because I knew Stan Lee was really just a writer, and then he transitioned out of that to being an executive. And so to me, he was like P. Diddy, but I was into Biggie.
All up in the videos.
Jack Kirby was with Biggie, right?
Yeah.
And so I was into Biggie, not P. Diddy. Like, even though I liked P. Diddy, I was really into Biggie.
Right.
And I just respected Diddy, or respected Stan Lee. I think respect is the better word. I had a lot of respect for Stan Lee. And I was happy to see that. It was exciting to watch someone see their dream blow up the way it did when Disney came into the picture and made these massive films, right? Yeah. And it's like, so and being in comics, I had a kinship with him. Like, oh wow, look at that, man. This dude is actually seeing Spider-Man. He was there when he created Spider-Man, and he's seen the Avengers, Spider-Man, all these guys, all these characters of his become the shit. Like $1 billion, not $1 million films, $1 billion grossing films. That must have he saw it before he died.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of a cut he got, but it wasn't enough. However much they were paying him, it wasn't enough. But we gotta share Spider-Man, man, because Miles Morales is Afro Latino now, so he's.
Oh yeah.
we gotta share Spider-Man.
Dude, speaking of which, I love that film.
Yeah.
That was that was mind blowing to me. Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that like your favorite comic book movie of like the last 10 years, or what was your favorite?
It's up there. It is definitely up there. I would say Spider-Verse. I want to say Infinity War. And we're talking about recently, right?
Yeah, just like the last 5-10 years, like from this last like cinematic universe kind of modern age of comic book movies, I would say.
And I still put Dark Knight pretty high.
Yeah.
People like have selective memory, and they try to change history when they remember stuff. Like, people forget like how I remember walking out of Dark Knight and being like mind fucked, like, oh, what was that? That was dope. That wasn't what that
was like a comic book movie and a mafia movie in the same word.
Right. Yeah, it had a profound effect on me walking. Like, I judge films like when if I walk out in the Twilight phase, like, I'm kind of like, that film is on my mind. They did their job, and that's how I felt with Dark Knight when I walked out of it. How I felt with Spider-Verse when I walked out of it. Like, I was literally inspired walking out of Spider-Verse. Like, I haven't felt inspired by superhero films like that since the first Superman movie.
How did you feel about Black Panther?
Black Panther was.
You think they did it right?
I think, yeah, for the most part. I thought it could have been better. Thought it could have been a better film, but Black Panther worked on a different level for me as far as like technically have to poke holes at it, but on a spiritual level, that's where it succeeded with me. Like, wow, because it was like, you know what was crazy? Waiting in line to watch that movie. Like the energy was palpable. Like that was sitting. It was like everyone was like, it was like we were at Disneyland. We're about to get on this great ride. We didn't know what the ride was going to be, but it was a festive energy waiting to watch Black Panther. Everybody was so happy to be there. And I was like, I ain't seen this many black people in San Diego since forever. Like, do people live here? Because if you live in San Diego, there ain't a lot of black people in San Diego. Right? And I think all of them were at that premiere. it was like that, you know, but it was it was the first time I saw a film with a predominantly black cast that actually had some money behind it. You know, that wasn't
It wasn't a gangster film, right?
That wasn't a gangster film. That had characters that proudly represented you. And even though I'm African American, and those were characters that are quote unquote from Africa, you know, there is a dichotomy there as far as our experiences, but still, that's the motherland. That, like I said, that spiritual connection to it was there, and I wanted to see that film succeed, and I think it surpassed everyone's expectations, and it proved the point to the Hollywood that there is money to be made with predominantly black casted films if you actually make it right and do it well, because black people want to see something good too. You know, I think we've been through the phase of being happy just seeing ourselves on screen. Now
you're past getting murdered first in the horror movie, right? And being the best friend. And being the best friend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's my Black Panther question though, because obviously, you know, tragically, you know, he passed away and obviously that was like an icon and you know, kind of like a huge, you know, RIP obviously Chadwick Boseman. But now they're talking about they're gonna make his sister the Black Panther, but in the Marvel universe, isn't death like an undefined thing? Like, I think it would be an excellent option if it was possible. Not to recast him, but why can't they bring Michael B. Jordan's character back? Like I felt like that was a waste of an incredibly good character. I understand that he was the villain. He was the villain in the film, and therefore he had to die in that fight at the end. If you want to go, but if you look at how death is treated in the Marvel universe, especially with the stones and everything, you know, would it be? And I don't know as much of it as you.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Plus, you have a superstar playing. You have a superstar. You know, they could do a ceremony. Something could happen. He could come back in the snap. I don't know, but you know, like I think that would be a much more interesting take to bring something back like him. That was kind of like the antagonist in the film, and have him take the role. Not that I don't think you know, his sister should play the role.
Yeah, if they do it. See, I'm that guy that's like, even though you gotta explain the murder to me. Like you still murdered some people that shouldn't have been murdered, bro. Like, people like the way they did Kylo Ren, right? I'm like, fuck Kylo Ren. He killed Han Solo.
Yeah, he killed his dad.
You know, and you got the main character kissing this dude.
Yeah,
you need to turn your lightsaber on and cut this dude's head off. Care if he's come back to the good side. You know, and that's how I felt about Luke Skywalker too. Like when he called himself trying to bring Darth Vader back to the Endor after Darth Vader took his helmet. No, I got to save you. Save him for what? Like if I'm one of the X-Wing fighters and Luke brings Darth Vader, there's my dad. He's good now. This dude killed my dad.
He killed my cousin.
Yeah,
he killed the whole Red Squadron.
Yeah, I'm not built like that. Like, no.
He force choked 2 bitches on the way over here. What you doing?
Yeah, unless it's like Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier, okay, he was brainwashed.
Right. He gets a pass.
He gets a pass because that's not him making a conscious choice to do that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So if they bring Killmonger back, they're gonna have to explain that. For me, they're gonna have to explain that part, the whole some of his choices he made when he was around, like I don't
I
know.
don't. That might be too deep for for a Marvel. Too the deep.
That's me. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a little
That's
too
me.
deep. Maybe you can do a fan film comic about him coming back to life.
But what do you think of? What do you think of? What do you? What do you think of Idris Elba being James Bond if he were to be casted as James Bond?
I think it's long overdue, man. I think he was like a perfect choice 10 years ago. I mean, he's been the right guy to play James Bond since The Wire. You know, like like
Well,
like
how do you? But do you think it breaks the James Bond mythos as far as being an agent? Would you call him like? Would you literally call him James Bond, or would you make him another 00?
I think he would work as another double O. Like I used to read a lot of Ian Ziering books, so I read the first few like James Bond, like From Russia with Love and stuff like that. And I think James Bond has always been like a succession of guys that had the same sort of style and that have been 007. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so for people that like, oh, it's okay to turn white characters black, but it's not okay to turn black characters white. All right, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it's all in the way that it's all an artistic choice, and I think that people that freak out and be like, oh no, James Bond has always been a white British guy. There's black people in Britain for a long
Yeah.
time now.
Right.
There's a lot of them.
Right.
So I don't know. I just think
a lot of Americans are ignorant to that though. Like they really don't. Like you would think that's common knowledge, but it really isn't. To a lot of folks, like they still get surprised to hear a different accent come out of a.
I know.
A
I
black
watch
face.
Top Boy Summer House. I know. I know all about that. You watch that show?
No.
Yeah, you watch that one. Yeah, then you start saying
Top
in
Boy.
it.
Is that on Netflix?
Yeah, it's on Netflix. Yeah, there's two. But you gotta. It was a British. Go ahead.
Is Idris in it?
No, he's not in it. But it's just it's a predominantly black British TV show. It's kind of like they call it like the British Wire, basically.
Okay.
But they did 2 seasons that were 4 episodes a while ago, like 10 years ago, and they did a new one. But Netflix shows you the new one before the old one, so it's kind of weird. But it is a good show. Like after you watch 2 episodes, you start like
okay. But I would not make him personally. I would make him a different 00, so he could start his own legacy. And I think that would make it more interesting that he's still part of the same organization, but he's like, just another 00. Because I'm not always down. I'm honestly not even down with like taking traditional white characters and making them black. Like to me, that I could take it or leave it. Like I don't really applaud that so much. I'd rather see an original black character.
How do you
introduced.
How do you feel? And I got another question from Brian here. But since you mentioned that, how do you feel about, like, for example, the recent change where like white voiceover actors are giving up their roles playing like black animated characters? Like I always kind of thought that the voiceover field should be sort of like an open, it should be based solely on your voice talent, because if you can voice a black character on par or better than another voiceover actor and it's a better fit sound wise for the role, I kind of would like to think that it's an open field, but I don't know if is that like, overcorrection.
Are you saying that? Wait a minute. Let me get this right. You're saying a white.
Well, there's a show. The main one that was like, there was a show Big Mouth, and there was a white actress that was doing the voice of a young black girl, right? Mm-hmm. And then all these things started to happen. People starting to start kind of analyzing everything like race wise, and these people basically did a preemptive strike and said, you know what? And it's after like Hank Azaria said, I'm going to stop doing the voice of Apu or something. Where basically they were saying like, I'm a white actress, I'm a white voiceover actress, and I feel that this black character should be voiced by a black voiceover artist. So they're basically stepping down from their jobs.
Do they want to step down?
I think they're doing it as a preemptive thing. They're doing it like basically, I don't know if it's like a virtual signal or if it's really them sort of looking deep and saying like, I really feel like this job should be going to somebody else. Now, there's two sides to that.
I think that anyone that does that probably can afford to do that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good decision. That's a good problem to have, to decide that you
Right.
can quit your job.
Right. I don't think that's. I don't think everyone is in a position to turn down a job, especially when it comes to acting and voice. It's hard to get those jobs, and I think that's someone who's in a position, whether they honestly doing it for that reason. I still, you have to be in a position to turn down a job, bro. Especially if
Yeah,
that's your field of, that's your career. And I think I don't know. I mean, I didn't know Darth Vader was James Earl Jones did Darth Vader for when I was a kid. It
right.
didn't cross my mind. I didn't know that was a black dude. It could have
Well,
been a white dude. Could have been anybody.
I think it's just like there's a part of it that's true, which is in all acting and creative fields, there's always been less minority voiceover actors, the same way there's always been less minority regular actors. So I think
Yeah.
that from that perspective, there should be more opportunities for actors of color to do voiceover and do stuff like that. But
I
at the
do know
same
what I
time,
don't like with voiceovers is when they do black characters. It seems like they rely heavily on stereotypes to make him sound him or her sound black, and it makes me roll my eyes. It's like, oh
right?
my god, it's
Yeah,
like the baritone voice
yeah.
and the little they try to throw in outdated slang. It's like you can tell nobody black wrote this.
Like I think you're definitely more. There's more of an issue with the way like the Indian character Apu is portrayed than the fact that the guy who does his voice is a talented white guy that's got voice
Yeah,
talent, right?
yeah,
So I think that makes sense from that perspective. All right, we have a
yeah.
technical question coming in from Brian. Around the time of the Ghost Rider reboot, this is a very technical question. In 1989-90, the paper comics printed on were more glossy, hence a more expensive book. What kind of paper do you fuck with, and does price play a role?
Wow, that is a technical question. Well, I am a self-owned publisher, so I not only do I create my comics, I publish them myself. So currently, I don't do any offset printing, which is what you see when you go into a comic book store with the mainstream stuff like Marvel, DC. That process is called offset printing, and you're going to get a more color accurate reproduction of what you did in Photoshop or whatever you created your comic in. Right? It's a cleaner, sharper print. But I'm using a process called laser printing, which is basically what you would find at a FedEx Kinko's, right? A color printer, a high-end color printer, laser printer,
You
or
still got that
tone
printer you
printer.
stole from Kinko's?
Yeah. Well, I don't actually print. I don't have a printer where I print it myself, but I go to a local printer here.
Mhm.
So, and I have them print out my books through that process because I can afford to do it for low print runs. And the paper, I don't know the actual technical name of the paper stock. But it's a little thicker than thicker than laser print, your standard laser white paper. It's a little thicker than that for my comics, and the covers are on a what they call gloss text. My comic book covers, I do that. But yeah, it's I go I I go through that process because it's cheaper than offset printing. Offset printing for larger print runs, which makes the price more affordable because you get that bulk rate. But since I'm not doing thousands, I'm not printing thousands of issues at a time. I'm more in the hundreds. It's more affordable for me to go with the laser print. And I don't know if that answers his question, but I don't have actual
Yeah, this is
paperweight numbers to give you.
all right. We have another comment from Hero Team Ken. He says that's why I don't like South Park. I think he's talking about the voicing of the black characters.
Kenny and them. Fuck Kenny.
World Beat Center is a place near and dear to my heart. When me and Chris premiered Blacklisted, Makeda let us do the screening there.
Oh, you
Like
did?
basically, yeah, we did our first screening there. With like she's just like, yeah, just pick a date, come do it. World, and also the other one that's right across the street from there. But did the fact that it's kind of like a strong presence sort of in the community sort of lead you to want to host your event there? Kind of growing up with that as a location here?
World Beat Center was there was an inside to it. For years, I thought it was a round building in the park. And I thought it was no, I didn't even, I thought it was a wall with some art on it. Oh, that's cute. Right. I didn't know it was a building you could walk into for years, right? And okay, let me back up. I was approached by Malcolm X Library here in San Diego, the only Malcolm X library in the whole United States, to come up with something for Black History Month that was comic book related, being that it's at a library, right? And my mother, who works on the nonprofit organization that's connected to that library, asked me if I would be interested in putting some type of show together. At first, I was going to say no. I didn't have any experience putting on any type of Comic-Con or anything like that, and I didn't think I had the time. But then I sat there and thought, like, man, wait a minute, there really isn't any Black Comic-Cons in San Diego that I know of. Maybe this is something I should at least try once. So between me, my mother, and the folks that she works with, called the Friends of Malcolm X Library, we put a show called Black Comics Day together. And I picked a date. Check this out. I picked a random date in February, right? I think it was February 18th, my first show, 2008. I didn't even know, bro. That date happened to be the very next day after the premiere of Black Panther, when Black Panther premiered. That's crazy. And when I found that out, I connected the two energies together. Like I told people, after you see that movie, come see the people behind the scenes. Come see the people who actually work on comics like Black Panther and Luke Cage and stuff. Because I actually have folks there who worked for Marvel who
These
actually
are pictures
worked
of
on
your event.
Yeah, who actually did work on Black Panther and Luke Cage and some of these other Black characters we were talking about earlier. And so I busted my ass making the show, people aware of the show, seeing that I was the only person on staff who actually knew anything about comics. Everybody else was like way much older than I was, and they didn't even know they barely knew what Comic Cons were, and I had to explain all that stuff to them. At the same time, trying to put the show together and contacting all these artists, and they didn't have to come. They could have said no because I didn't have any money to pay anybody to come there. And for whatever reason, they were compelled to come to my show, and it took off like a rocket. It's a one-day show. It was super successful. And then the following year, I did the same show at Malcolm X Library again. But at the end of the show, Makeda, who runs World Beat Center, had been watching my progress over the years, right? She basically liked what I was doing, and she offered her building for the 2020 show, this year's show. And so, I don't know Makeda. I know her now, but I didn't know her. I've seen her around, but I didn't really know her. And we had multiple meetings, and trial and error and whatever. Somehow we got that show put together and moved it to World Beat Center. And it was, we expanded it to 2 days. And I thought the show was going to be ruined because day one, it was raining super hard. And I was like, oh my God, show's ruined. No one's going to show up. It's raining out here.
It's one of the 3 days it's raining in San Diego.
Right. But people still showed up. They still came. The rain eventually stopped, and it was super successful. And the great thing was, at all 3 of my shows, every artist sold out or came near close to selling out. So it just experience was mind-boggling, or it was super inspiring to me, but super humbling because, bro, you gotta. Some of the people that came there, like you could see in their faces that they could not believe what they were seeing. All these black artists, all this positive energy, and these artists, they were seeing like black people creating original content, doing intellectual properties, breaking the mold, breaking the stereotypes, and it was diverse. There was we had black women there, black men, old, young, whatever. It ran the gamut, and some people were in tears. Like I came across people who were damn near ready to cry because of what they're seeing, and I was like, that's the part I didn't expect. And I've been doing comics for a long time, right? I did not expect I had that kind of effect on people. Like my work would have that kind of, and I was like, wow, this stuff is. I didn't know that. I didn't know. Remember, I told you it was just an escape for me.
Yeah, yeah.
But now I know that experience told me, like, no, it's bigger than that, bro. Like, your work has what you guys are doing, because it's not just me. All my bros and brodettes. What we were doing there had weight to it. And no matter what people were saying outside of us, whether they were naysayers or haters or whatever, it didn't matter. As long as we did what we needed to do, as long as we took our God-given gifts, put that work in, there were people there ready to support it. Even in your darkest days when you think like nobody understands you and you're the only one that's like doing what you're doing and you're the only one that's going to like this, there's an audience, there's a fan for every artist out there. You just have to do the work and put it out there and make yourself known, and you will find fans, or they will find you. You know,
I think you said it earlier where it was like you're doing this. You don't want to be the guy that has like the heavy themes or the heavy sort of genre, but in creating that opportunity for people to view this array of talent, cultural talent, you were carrying that weight yourself. Like putting it out there for people. So even though you're not necessarily talking about the very deep, super important aspects of it. Like you said, like you told me before, the fact that you're putting that out there, putting your brothers and sisters on display is kind of, a monumental thing if you think about it.
Yeah. That's what I tell them. Like, because you had guys there who had deep books, right? They had some heavy subject matter in their comics,
right?
But they were sitting right. But then the table right next to him might be a guy with a story. He has black characters, but the story ain't really about nothing but standard superhero stuff, right? And both were relevant. They both were equally relevant to their fans. It wasn't like, oh, since this guy's talking about the diaspora and how he's got like a Django thing going on over here. It doesn't make make your stuff any less potent or less important because yours is about a dude's afro that comes to life or whatever, and fights bad guys. It's all relevant because the core of what people were being inspired by was the actual creators themselves. They want, it's something that, and even for me, and I admit it too, I didn't grow up seeing that. Like my head probably would have exploded if I was back when I was a teenager and someone told, hey kid, did you know next week there's this black Comic Con? There's gonna be all these black guys. What? I can imagine me being super inspired to go check that out, because it wasn't
well,
hard,
I can imagine.
It just wasn't there.
I can imagine the difference between somebody coming up to your booth at Comic-Con versus coming up to your booth at your event, right?
Right.
Like in terms of the questions they ask or like the look on their face and things like that, right?
Right, for sure. Comic-Con is great, first of all, but it's also a big boy league. Because if you don't, I tell people, like, don't go too crazy putting money into getting into Comic-Con because you're not going to get more attention than Marvel and DC. So if you want to like really make a name for yourself, start out with the smaller conventions and work your way up to San Diego Comic-Con. Or if you do go to Comic-Con, go to like Artist Alley or something like that. Like, don't. A lot of people who start businesses make that. A lot of us make that same mistake of like, oh man, I'm gonna have this, that. I'm gonna pay $1 million for my table, and They just
Gonna
go
do
crazy.
giveaways.
Yeah, and it's like, wait, hold on. Nobody knows who you are. Slow down. Work on your fan base. Work your way up. It's not going to happen overnight. And don't get discouraged, because I've been to comic signing. I don't just go to comic conventions. I go to like different comic shops to do signings, right? And there's been some times where I've gone to a comic shop, one person shows up. I remember one time I was out there by myself in the rain, bro, with a tent over my table. Nobody showed up. And it's not because, and I didn't have any control over it because I'm not the one advertising it. They asked me to be there. I show up. People don't show up. But since I said I'll be here till 5, I'm going to be here. Because I believe in myself. I believe in my product. So if I look crazy out here, I look like a fool sitting out here in the rain by myself with my comic books, then so be it. But I know at the end of the day, I put the work in, and that universe is going to give something back to me. Like, I can't, like, this don't even make sense. Like, there's two sides to everything. Like, if you push one way long enough, there's going to be an opposite effect of it eventually, right?
Absolutely.
So, but most people, I would say 80% to 90% of people out there give up once they hit that first roadblock.
We are talking with Keithan Jones from kid-comics.com, also the founder of Black Comics Day. That's happened 3 times so far in San Diego. They might take a break, COVID-related, next year, but hopefully comes back strong for year 4, either later next year or the year after that. Also a featured Comic-Con artist this year. Is that something that they'll allow you to roll over into the next edition? Or,
yeah, they already contacted me, so they have me slated for 2021.
Hopefully by then we'll be back live. And again, the website's kids-comics.com. The series, or your main series, is the Power Knights. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's following, make sure you drop us a like or follow us on facebook.com @burritos so you can catch us next time we're live, or on Twitch or on YouTube. All kinds of stuff, 2 AM Burrito related. I want to ask you a couple more questions. I'm gonna let you go. The kid in you never dies. That's such a pure statement, because people say, I don't see adults, I just see a bunch of kids that got old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's that? Is that something? Go ahead.
That's basically what it is. Like, that name Kid was actually, remember you showed me my first comic.
Yeah.
If you look up, it's hard to read it, but if you look up in the corner, it says Kid. And so it's not something I created later. It was always there. And what I did, it's up in the left corner there. It's hard to tell from the picture, but that says Kid, that little circle thing. Mm-hmm. It's all crumpled up. But it says Kid. It says Kid Comics. I didn't have the Kid. I did not come up with the acronym Kid and You Never Dies. Oh, you got the poster there?
I just wanted to grab the poster so I could show people the difference here in your work.
Oh, yeah.
You can see the difference between, like when you first started and like the quality.
Yeah, this is issue 1. I don't know. You see that?
Yeah, this is from your that's from whatever your last Kickstarter was.
Yeah, what you have on the screen now is the original issue 1,
mm-hmm.
And this is the actual official issue 1 that's in my hands now. This is the realized version of it in my adulthood. But what I was gonna say was when I embarked on doing my own, and I guess I'll leave the audience with this. Okay, I'm at my last job, working as a graphic designer, and been there for about 7 years or so. And all that, in that time I was there, this voice in my head kept getting louder. It's time for you to follow your dream, you know. And I was really comfortable at my job. They gave me a lot of freedom. I liked the work. It was, everything was cool. But there was still that burning desire to make my mark in comics and follow my passion, right? So I think what was my last year? No, I actually started the company before I quit. 2014. I said, if I'm going to do this, how am I going to enter the market? Like, how am I going to market myself? Like, what do young folks today like? And I was like, you know what? Forget that. What if I just take whatever thoughts I had when I was 11 years old, legitimize those same ideas, and just and don't, like, remove my adult jadedness away out of the picture. And I took a gamble on thinking that if I liked this when I was a kid, I think kids today would like the same, would be attracted to that same energy that I was attracted to. So I was like, I'm going to keep the company name Kid. I'm going to keep the same character designs, except for some modifications, because some stuff does get dated. But basically the same character designs. I came up with a more cohesive story, and that's what I wrote on. And so I sat down. I would go to work 8 hours a day. I would go to school for another 4 hours because I was teaching myself 3D animation, which I already forgot how to do. And I would work on my comic stuff till about 3 o'clock in the morning before I went to bed. And I would repeat that cycle for 2, 3 years, 3 or 4 years doing it. Of course, I was younger back then too. So eventually I got 4 books out. I'm working on the final issue to complete the story, or at least the first volume. Issue 5 is what I've been working on. It's a year late because through this whole process of doing the Power Nights and going to Comic Cons, um, what came about through the process is what I just told you about Black Comics Day that came around through this process. I've gotten invited. I've been made a special guest at San Diego Comic Con, which is happening next year. Uh, I've been across the country, been invited to other cons across the country. I've done a lot of shows, been on road trips because of comics. I even went to Mexico, the real Mexico, last November at GammaCon. I don't know if you heard of GammaCon. Went there. They treated me really well. Had translators there for me. I had a nice hotel. Just, that was a completely new experience for
Should
me.
have taken me, man. I would have been your translator.
Right, next time, bro. Next time. The money exchange was I was like, dude, I thought I was taking up, right? I was like, oh, I had like a fat pocket of cash, right? Dinero, right?
Yeah.
I come back to America after I sold all my books and whatnot, and of course, exchange rate was like, it's like, I'm not going to tell you how much money I took home, but it wasn't what I thought. And I was like, damn. But still, it was a great experience.
We're gonna pay you 40,000 pesos.
Yeah,
What?
basically.
40,000.
Basically. But that's okay because the main mission, especially early on, is that the one thing I banked on was like, and what was most important to me was like, I don't care so much about the money. I was like, if people weren't reacting to the book, that's when I would have been super depressed. I was like, this is not working. If people were like not stopping to look at it, not buying it, that's when you know you're in trouble. It's not the money that you're making in the beginning, it's the exposure that you need. You want to know if that book is moving units, and you want to know if people are being emotionally moved by it or attracted to it. That's what you want to gauge and keep feeding that beast. Don't worry about money. Don't even worry about paperweight and all this other technical stuff. You want to make sure that people actually like those characters in that story. And that's what's going to propel you into, financial success later on. And that's where I am now. Now I'm not rich. I'm not rolling in the dough, but I got to the point now where I don't need to I don't need to clock into anybody's clock. I don't need to do an 8 hour shift anywhere, I wake up, I either work on my own comic or work on helping someone else's comic, and that's what I do every day. And I try to pace myself because I do burn out because it's a lot of work. And since I'm in the because the drawback is you the difference between what I do now and what I was doing is like I know I was going to get paid every 2 weeks at a job. You know, that was guaranteed money as long as I didn't quit.
Right.
But this, I don't get paid until I turn something in. So I'm motivated. I'm motivated by survival and passion. Because I'm like, what do they say about sharks? Once a shark stops moving, they die.
Yeah.
That's me.
A fucking shark ate me.
So yeah, I'm independent. Other than my wife, she works too, but she's always worked. So she's always had her job, and through her is where I get like the healthcare benefits.
Okay.
That's why I'm an advocate of. I'm one of those people who wants universal healthcare.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, yeah, I don't understand people who fight against. Oh no, you don't want the government. Like, bro, do you understand how much it's easier to run a business if I can, if I know I can have my healthcare taken care of through taxes?
Yeah.
Or my employee, or hiring somebody. Like, if I can hire somebody and not have to worry about taking care of their health insurance and all this shit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like if she stops working, I'm like, oh shit. That means I got to come out of pocket and pay what they can. Oh, it's affordable. Are you crazy? They want
Fuck all that.
$800 every 2 weeks for something that might happen to you.
Yeah, no. And then you got to pay on top of that.
Right, and it's no guarantee that they're going to serve you well.
Right now, 2020, we're still in the middle, like getting, who knows how fucking far along this pandemic we are. But as it stands right now, do you think we have a full crowd opening day at Comic-Con, or is it going to be like a preview night crowd, but the whole week because they're going to want to try to limit some of the scope of people in there?
Yeah,
if you had a bet right now.
If COVID is still raging like it is now, there's no way.
No,
there's no way they're gonna. You know what it's like there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
there's a difference between preview night and like Saturday 2 p.m. Right. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between having like 4 inches next to you and being able to breathe to like literally just rubbing up against people as you walk down the aisles, right? So yeah. I think no matter what.
I think the artists are going to look at it like this though. They're going to be like, some of those booths are pricey. Like, up to like $3,000 to $4,000 for certain booths, depending on where you are. And you got to consider the return, the ROI, the return on investment. Like, am I going to get my table money back with half the audience? I mean, less than half the people here. Like,
I think what you do is you rent a booth, you build like a robot, and then you put like an iPad, and then you just virtually like kick back, and people can talk to you on Face. What's up? That's right, my merch.
The arms come out.
There you go. You grab some free merch. What's the weirdest thing anybody ever asked you to draw as a commission at Comic-Con?
I'll never forget. This dude came up to me and was like, "Hey man, can you draw me a werewolf as a pimp?" I was like, "What?" Yeah, man, make him like a pimp, but he's a werewolf. You dig? I was like, "All right," and I did it, and I actually took that character and put it into one of my friend's comics. He had a comic called Vegas Baby. And we thought like, yo, that's actually a cool character. After I drew it, like, oh, that's actually a cool character. Let's put it in your comic because he fits your universe. But yeah, I'll never forget that. That was one of the wildest things I ever drew or came up with.
I was gonna bug you once for a weaponized like superhero burrito, but then I realized that it's basically like Pickle Rick. Like after he gets, because after Pickle Rick, he's got like all the arms and the weapons and stuff. I'm like, it's a pickle, very similar to a burrito. So I was like,
No, see, they're McDonald's. We're McDowell's. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They got the golden arches. We got the
We
golden
got the
arch.
golden arch, right?
Oh yeah.
That's the other bummer about 2020, man. I was
Oh,
looking forward to
yeah.
Coming to America 2. I was looking forward to Top Gun 2. What else was supposed to come out this year?
The James Bond.
James Bond, all this. I'm like, yo, what is Hollywood doing, man? Like, are they gonna like, what are they gonna do with all these films that are backed up?
The the outside shots of the apartment building from Coming to America are like 3 blocks away from where I grew up in Queens, and the McDowell's was actually a Wendy's that was like a couple of blocks from my high school on Queens Boulevard. And back in the day, they took it down at some point, but inside the Wendy's, they had behind the scenes production photos from when they shot the movie, all on the wall right there at that Wendy's.
Oh wow!
That was the McDowell's. So I was bummed. I was bummed that they're pushing that back.
No, it's on. Well, you know, it got picked up by Netflix.
It's going to go straight to Netflix.
Yeah, they sold it.
Yeah, well, that's even fucking better because then I don't.
Yeah, and I think it's coming out. It's going to be released this Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah.
One other comic book question that I had for you, which is for some reason it came up. Dr. Manhattan versus Thanos with 4 of the 5 stones.
Who wins?
Yeah, who do you think wins?
Which stone is missing?
Because I think with all 5 stones, like it's too easy, right? Because you can, But I think that's why I was like 4 out of the 5 stones. I don't know. Time stone is missing. You can't do any time travel. So.
Okay, exactly what can Dr. Manhattan do? Like, can he? What is the like? What is his?
I guess the similarity between their powers is that they both sort of have this limitless creation thing where if Thanos has the right stones, he can basically change reality, and Dr. Manhattan, I believe, can sort of change matter and change sort of, right? He can move people. He can do a lot of the same stuff. It's never really defined, I think. Well, I'm not as huge a comic nerd, but I don't know if it's as defined.
See, Thanos is kind of like the DeLorean. You know what I mean? Because it's like, or the Terminator movie. It's like, well, if you screw up, you just go back even further.
Yeah.
And why do you even go to the apex of the problem? Why don't you just go to the part where they're like, what was it? I think it was in Endgame. They were like, why don't we just go back to when Thanos was a baby and just
Yeah.
And they were like, that's not how time travel works. It isn't.
The whole baby Hitler question.
Yeah. That's what At a certain point, time travel gets kind of like, all right, how many times we're going to do this? Like, you guys are just really making this more difficult than it needs to be. Just go back to when these people were born and kill them then. I don't know. I think I think it'd be a more interesting battle would be Thanos versus Green Lantern, a Green Lantern that has a good imagination.
Yeah, that's the other thing with Green Lantern, which is like you have the possibility to create anything, and they just make all these basic ass things. Like,
yeah, and well, I heard that it's because the Green Lantern's power is limited to its imagination. You can't think of anything better than
that's it.
That's it. It's not the ring limiting you, limiting your powers. You limiting your power because you got a poor imagination.
If you could redraw any property in your own style, which one would you do?
Ooh, Teen Titans.
Teen Titans, the original.
Teen Titans, and okay, I'll give you 3. So if they asked me to do it, I would do it. Teen Titans, Conan, the Barbarian, and Blade.
Blade, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Remember when we met Wesley at Comic-Con a couple of years back too?
That's right. That was a wild night. That was crazy. Yeah.
Well, man,
I like Underworld too.
Underworld.
Yeah,
The
I love
whole
Underworld.
you
I
like
love
those
the
high?
whole series, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think they're all perfect. I like the earlier ones better than the later ones, but I just like that. I think that's the ill concept. Like, wow, vampires versus lichens, and like werewolves. That's sick. Like that
the,
whole concept.
yeah.
And Blade is a dope concept too. That whole when I heard the concept of Daywalker, I was like, oh shit, who thought of that?
Fuck yeah.
Daywalker, that's dope. Like, and I'm like, damn, Marvel, don't you understand how dope that can be? Like, I don't understand why you guys don't do anything with Blade. Like, it's like they don't get it. They don't get the cool. They have all this cool stuff, and they don't even know it.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
they outsmart themselves by thinking about money. Do you think that there's one comic that's the most overrated?
Most overrated comic book,
Yeah,
like in talking about over history.
yeah.
Shit.
That people
Oh
just like
yeah.
fawn over and then you just don't
You
get
know,
it.
that's a hard question to answer because you might get hate mail.
Yeah, that's yeah. Or
But
you
I'm
might
gonna
get
say
hired.
right. I'll say I'll frame it this way. I like it, but I'm not like ooh the God book, Watchmen.
Watchmen.
Yeah, I'm talking about Alan Moore's original Watchmen, right? I recognize the artistry of it. I understand what it's alluding to and all that stuff, but for
You watch the
me,
show?
I was more of the Dark Knight guy versus because Dark Knight and Watchmen were out at the same time.
Mm,
I lean more towards Dark Knight's
yeah, me
concepts
too.
versus Watchmen because Watchmen to me was like, remember I told you I'm an optimist, right? So Watchmen to me was like, he's a well, if superheroes in real were existed in real life, this is what happened, and
Right.
these are the implications of it all. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck, dude. I know it's not real. I know it's not real. This is the stuff I'm trying to get away from. I already know that this stuff is implausible. You know, of course we're gonna freak out if you see Superman in the sky. You know, even when you're a kid, you have those thoughts. Like you know that already. Like, oh man, what if he was real? Remember when you used to talk with the do the what if
Yeah,
game with your friends?
yeah, yeah.
I know that already, and I think there's a contingent out there that's they are turned on by that question, and they're into the adult version of these characters. And I'm like, that's the problem with the comic book. That's what
Yeah.
killed it. You guys got so adult, so deep and dark. You ran all the kids out of the industry.
But I think that that's a little bit of the fallout. But Dark Knight was so good in sort of straddling that line, though, that I think that people try to emulate it. Don't you? I think a little bit of that is kind of from the success that it
Yeah,
had.
because they kept the fantasy element of it, and the fantasy element of Dark Knight was the old man. It was a it was like Unforgiven. You ever see that movie with
Russ
Clint
Al
Eastwood?
Ghul. Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was that.
absolutely.
It's like yo, the crouchy old warrior coming back to reclaim his land and his legend, and he's still the old gunslinger. He's showing these young whippersnappers how to do it, and you got the cocky young kid up by his side. That story is always fun, and there's a million of those in movies out there like that. But it's always resonates with me at least, and that's what I liked about Dark Knight, and the fact that I'd never seen Batman at that time. It was a novel concept because at that time, when I first came across Batman, like first came across him, he was him, Superman, and a lot of the DC characters were goofy as hell to me. Like I was a Marvel guy. I thought the DC characters were goofy because at that time they were. Like this was before Dark Knight era, right? And the only thing I liked over there was the Teen Titans, but they had the Batman TV show with a bunch of slapstick stuff going on, and Super Friends was really kiddie and all this stuff. Even though I watched it, but it
Yeah,
didn't compare to like
that,
the X Men, Wolverine
yeah.
with
The
the
X
claws
Men.
popping
I was
out with
about to
the
say.
attitude,
Yeah,
and Spider Man being he had the same problems I had, the girls and his job and real world stuff, right?
yeah,
And and they Marvel at that time had all the hottest artists, and it was just that era until Frank Miller changed the whole thing around with Dark Knight, and that's when I was like, oh shit, Batman's cool as fuck.
What did you think about Batman Superman?
The movie,
Yeah,
uh, visually it looked good. I did. I think the only thing I couldn't swallow was the casting of Lex Luthor and the way he was portrayed,
Yes, yeah, very,
and the
yeah,
fact that Superman, the contrast between Batman and Superman wasn't done right. Superman should have been more of a positive, bright character with a more Boy Scout air to him versus the angry, moody teenage, whatever he was.
yeah,
And so he can, so Batman was fine. They did him, he was fine. I thought if they would have fixed Superman and Lex Luthor, that film would have been a lot better
yeah. Batman's
because,
motivation was clear.
yeah.
Yeah, he's driving around
And
seeing these
also,
buildings
also
falling.
the two characters should learn, like Batman should learn learn from Superman, and Superman should learn from Batman. So it's like Black Panther and Killmonger, right? Black Panther was the kid who grew up with both parents. He knew who he was. He knew where he came from. He was a level headed person. Killmonger was the African American who had a lot of anger in him because of the shit he's going through in America. Coming from a broken family and getting the raw end of the stick, right? So he's the two of them, although they were kin to each other and come from the same heritage, did not grow up the same way, and so their viewpoint of the world was in conflict. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Superman and Batman, I see the same way. Clark Kent, both parents, wholesome Kansas City boy, small city world, goes to the big city. He's naive. That was the great thing about the first Superman movie. I love the way they did that film because Lois Lane represented street edge, showing Clark Kent how the real, quote unquote, real world operates versus his Pollyannish view of everything. And that dichotomy makes it interesting when the two characters interact. And I feel that's how Batman and Superman should interact with each other. Batman's like, yo, man, this world is dark and it's mean and it'll chew you up and grind you and spit you out. And oh man, give everybody come on, everybody, we should all get along and come on, man.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you fuck with any of like the newer shows? Because I find that sometimes I'll watch a lot of these like I watched Flash. I watched Luke Cage, but I think what kept me in on Luke Cage was the music. The fact that they named every season one episode against uh like what I mean, like a
Hip
gangster
hop
song.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um like it felt just, that kept me in it more than because they just dragged
You
that
gotta be
out.
part of it. You gotta be part of the culture to catch all that stuff in Luke Cage, man.
Yeah,
Like
no.
you gotta like I said, what I say, like we grew up in this shit, right? We grew
Yeah.
up with hip hop, so we know those little keys. We know why they chose with what's the name
Just to
had
get
the
a
Biggie,
rap. Yeah,
yeah,
just
had the
just
had the Biggie poster in the background on the
yeah,
wall, remember,
yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff like
absolutely.
that. And we picked up on that stuff, so that added that extra dimension. Whereas the people who might be into Luke Cage but aren't into hip hop, they're gonna miss all that. They'll see it and they'll hear, but they'll miss all that extra layering up in that show that was going on. And that stuff is important, because it it helps, at least it helps people like us who are into that culture and part of that culture to connect on a spiritual level. Like those songs bring back memories, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but yeah, I just think it's really hard to get the right balance for a superhero show between like what their budgeting is and like making it feel close enough to like a big screen action, and then but I think it's more of that serial feel of episode to episode, kind of taking your time between the pages that they're going for. But like I was out of once they started introducing like the multiverse and a bunch of stuff, I was out on the Flash. I never got into like Supergirl or those other DC shows.
No, I don't watch that stuff.
Nah. So I just it. But shit. That's just like an
I did
added
watch
player.
Supergirl was pretty. I watched some of the first few episodes. That was pretty good. I did like Supergirl for a while there, but I didn't stick with it.
If Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you one other question, which is for somebody that maybe is not necessarily well versed in independent comics, and like like people that like I want to give some independent artist a look. What's a good starting off point? Obviously, your book, you're an old head, but you're still an up and coming artist, right?
Hey, watch your mouth. Watch your mouth, bro.
But where's a good place for people to just sort of start looking for independent comments and that might not be in their face as much.
Let me see here. Let's see here. Independent comics. Yeah.
Oh, all right. We got the exclusive stash coming out. A personal stash.
Let's see if we can shout some folks out before we get up out of here. And most of these people I know through Facebook. I don't know them on a personal level, but get this one. They hate it. You know David Walker? Do you know David Walker?
I think I might have seen him at the con, but I don't know.
When he works on both sides of the fence. He's indie and mainstream guy. But I think primarily he's been making a lot of noise in indie books now. This is his latest effort called They Hate It. And David Walker was writing the first Cyborg series for DC. I think the first time Cyborg had his own book, that was maybe I want to say 5 years ago. But he's done Luke Cage and some other Marvel and DC books. I don't remember off the top. But as far as indie, this is good. This just came out earlier this year, and it's drawn by Sean Damian Hill. And Sean's got a great style. You can see he's always active on Facebook and Instagram, posting his stuff. So look out for these guys. What is this? I don't really know this guy personally, but I did support his Kickstarter. It's a pretty good book, Raining Devil. Pablo the Gorilla.
Oh, there you go.
There you go, right? Pablo the Gorilla.
Like it on name alone.
This is a young lady, talented young lady. She wrote a book called Spirit's Destiny. I recently did a commission for her for, I don't know if she's going to use for a poster or a cover, but it's called Spirit Destiny.
Nice.
It's a lot of indie books. There's a strong female movement also. Women writers, particularly Black women writers, coming up in comics as well. That's another thing you want to keep an eye on. And she's one of them. And I always like get afraid to say her last name, but or not her last name, but her first name, Dorfees Jean, the writer of this.
Jean, maybe? Jean?
No, it's Jean.
Jean.
Yeah. So check her out. Rumble Kings, another good one.
Nice. That was cool.
Yeah, Rumble Kings. We got Rumble Kings. That's by Ryan Cummings. This is another brother I know. I'm gonna have
Jason on probably in a couple of weeks as well.
Oh, you know this guy?
No. But I wasn't talking about that. It just came to my mind that Jason Wise is supposed to be on the stream soon.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's what I was like. Yeah.
He goes by Urias. You know that, right?
Oh yeah. No, but I just see him talk to him on Facebook all the time. That just gets stuck in my head. Okay. I just always associate people to their Facebook name, even if I know their real name. Yeah.
I wish he would put his name because I get it because I'm like, you want people to call you Jason Wise or you want to call you Reyes? What is it? I know people are getting confused.
Yeah, that's what anyway,
I was. Justice, another cool book to check out.
Nice.
Brian Lambert, and Mike Tenner. If you like magic and this guy is an interesting writer. This dude's like into like, remember Twilight Zone and what's that thing with the agent Mueller? What's his name?
X
Mueller,
Files.
X Files. That
Yeah.
kind of stuff. That if that's your flavor, this is your book.
Black
Black
Jackets.
Jackets and stuff that he writes about.
It's a look
Yeah,
inside the indie comic industry. Our guest
yeah,
tonight was Keithan Jones,
yes, sir.
kid-comics.com, the Power Knight Saga, Black Comics Day. I had a whole bunch of other stuff about like technique and inking and stuff like that, but I don't think it's relevant right now, man. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today. Who's going to win, Mike Tyson or Roy Jones?
Good question. I'm going with Mike.
Going with Mike, going with power over speed.
Yeah, but if it goes past if it goes past 3 rounds, Roy Jones is doing something right.
Watch the if you haven't watched it, he did the Joe Rogan podcast. It was actually a lot of fun listening to them talk about boxing. I don't know. I just think Roy Jones when he lost it fast. Like he went from like dominating fools and like just like to like when like his last couple of fights he just got knocked out fast. So I don't know. Power age, power age is better than speed, I would think.
Yeah, I think you have to have a bit of hunger also. Like I think you can get real comfortable in your space once you get up there at the top, and you forget how hungry you used to be. Remember Creed 2?
Yeah.
He lost to that's another one was there. What did you think of Creed 2?
I think the thing is, I think Creed is probably my favorite movie of the last 10 years.
Wow,
like,
really?
Yeah, I think I can watch that scene of him walking into that stadium with the Tupac playing. Like I can watch that scene and get chills like every time. I think, and I was always a big Rocky fan, so I think Creed, like as a boxing film, as an overall film, like I think it's one of the best films that I've seen of the last 10 years. Along with like a couple of others, but it's up there. Like I would say in my top 5. So Creed 2, I think automatically was going to sort of be a letdown a little bit based on that, just because Creed was so good. I thought it was an adequate sequel, but I don't remember anything from it. It doesn't seem, it's not memorable. It's not memorable to me. Yeah.
Because they didn't do Drago's right. They didn't do he doesn't look like Drago's son.
No.
I'm like, you sure that's your dad?
like you said that, and then I was like, oh, that's right, it was Ivan Drago's kid. But like off top, I can remember everything from Creed 1. You know myself, like the stuff with him.
It wasn't a bad film. It just didn't. I mean, that's a legendary character to continue like Drago.
Yeah. When you make that decision to bring Drago's son into it, you got to do it right.
You got to, man. You got to, because that's one of my favorite Rocky movies.
Like I think that, like just thinking about it now, that movie should have started like Creed 1 started, but with the story of Drago's kid growing up as like the son of an icon in Russia. You know what I mean? Like if they start Creed 2, but focus for like the first 15 minutes only on a young Drago, then we check in on where Creed's at. I think it hooks you in a little bit better.
I also thought the portrayal of Drago, the dad, I thought it was too shallow. Like the original ending of Rocky, is it 4? Yeah, the original ending of Rocky 4, and I thought Drago showed a lot of humility. Like I thought I left that film thinking that he was not even angry with Rocky anymore. It was more like, thanks for liberating me, because I'm under this oppressive regime that's like wants me to be perfect, wants me to be this robot.
Right.
And yeah, I lost the fight against you, but at the same time, you got everybody saying Rocky in Russia.
Yeah, Drago's definitely a viable. There's no way he still doesn't have like a 30-fight career after that, right?
Yeah, but the way they portrayed him, he's like he wants revenge on Rocky by any means necessary, and it's like it kind of rang hollow to me. Like, he made Drago kind of stupid. Like, I don't know. I would have did it different, but whatever.
Well, maybe they'll let you can do the Rocky comic book. after after it's done.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Keithan, I appreciate you taking the time, man, to talk to me today. Hope you had a good time, man. Good combo.
Yeah, it was good, man. It was good. Like, I'm glad. Thanks for asking me some interesting questions. A lot of times people only ask you like basic stuff and don't want to really get into anything too deep. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like, well, I've answered
Nah.
this question a million times.
I try. I mean, I try to stay away from like the basic stuff like that. Like even when I have co-host on, and I'll be like, "Hey, ask a question," and they'll be like, "What's your favorite movie?" And I'm just like, "Oh, why are you
Right.
asking? Why are you
Right.
asking that?"
Right.
But
It's okay to ask that,
it's
but hopefully
okay.
it
But
goes
it's
into
like,
other areas.
but built to something. Nah, like that's
Right.
one of the good. That's one of the things I'll brag about myself is that people do tell me like, "Yo, that's an interesting question," or "You have some insight on that." So I try to get into it a little bit with people and just kind of have interesting conversations, and
Yeah.
and I'm glad that even though we usually. I know it's like the Comic-Con tradition. At some point, be like, hey, meet up for lunch somewhere and shit like that. Shoot the shit for a couple of hours,
Yeah.
like while you go back to shit. So, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I'm glad that you had the success that you have, especially for a local Comic-Con artist. I can't wait to be able to see you featured next year
Thank you, man.
at a live event. You already know once they start talking about movie rights, hit me up. And if you get bored, I'm just saying, little weaponized
Well,
superhero burrito.
I'll leave you guys with this. Is like my goal with Kid is to be a production studio one day, if God willing. I don't want to sit at this table, draw every day for the rest of my life. I do want to like come across a person like yourself. Hey man, he's got a great concept there. I want to be able to do. I want to be have enough money and influence where I can like put money into your project and make sure that your project is done to the fullest. Same with if I see a young comic book artist out there and he's got this great concept, but he doesn't necessarily have the backing to do it to put it out in the world. I want to be the guy that funds it. Release it under Kid, and if you want to take it from Kid, move on to something else in the future, then fine. But I want to be like the Netflix of comic books one day. That covers that gives people who wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity, because I still think, even though there's companies like Image and Marvel and all those guys out there, I still think their hierarchy, the power hierarchy, is coming from, it's a bunch of guys that come from the same neighborhood and they have the same taste, and they don't necessarily see the genius in other stuff that they're not used to seeing. Everything is their criteria for judging stuff is based on stuff that they've seen a million times. Well, it's got to fit this box in order for us to give the green light, because that's what works. It's like, you don't know that. You're like 80 years old.
Right.
How do you know? How do you know people don't like this?
You don't got the answers.
You ain't got the answer, Sway. Speaking Kanye West, can you believe Kanye is on the ballot, dude? All right, well, that's a story. I know we'll be talking about that forever. Let me get off this podcast.
Yeah. We could talk Kanye after he's president in 2024, and we can bitch about
right.
it. All right, man. Well, like I said, I appreciate you taking the time, man. I wish you nothing but the best. I hope we get to work together soon on something, and hopefully we'll be having lunch in real time at Comic-Con next year. All right.
Yeah, we'll get past this, man. We'll get past this, man. This world has been through shit, man. This world's been through Hitler. We can get through anything. We got past that crazy nut.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And we'll get past this stuff too.
Big Chief Burrito, Fireside Chats with Keithan Jones. Thanks for being here. I'm out.
Out. Peace.